good evening, listeners and viewers of TDN, and of course, the audience of this week in interview. A very warm good evening to you. This is Anthony Drago, your host and guide of this week in interview, and we are about to embark on another episode of this week in interview. Today being April 29th, 2026. So, welcome, the regular listeners. Of course, you know how much I appreciate you, and of course, every week we pick up a few additional listeners, and so welcome as well. If tonight is the first time that you're hearing this week in interview, I hope you like what you hear and that you too become a regular listener and viewer of this weekend interview. As a matter of fact, let me take the opportunity to invite you, if you have not done so, to like the program, to like the station, TDN Media, TDN TV. And this weekend interview, we are on Facebook, we are on YouTube, we are on Instagram, on Roku, uh, TGM Radio, Talking Music Global Radio carries us live. Uh, Also, Radio SBE carried us live in the Toronto market. We have RVR Jams in Dominica on DigiPlay channel 59 that also carries this week in interview live. And so we want to say welcome to you no matter how you're finding us. We want you, if the media that you are listening to us on allows you to give us a like, subscribe, and comment. That helps us grow the channel as well. And of course, the information that we give, I always say, I hope it starts a movement for change, and the more people who are there to partake, definitely makes that more of a possibility. And so, talking about movement for change, there's a number of things going on in Dominica that we'd like to discuss. My guest tonight is going to be Mr. Alex Powell Bruno. No stranger to this weekend interview. It's our monthly, you want to call it touchstone, where we talk about just the general social and political happenings and issues in Dominica and the other Caribbean islands. Alex is a political scientist, but he also does some polls and he likes to keep his finger on the pulse of what's going on in Dominica. So I find him a very apt and informed guest for us to try to put certain things in perspective. He is not here as yet, so I'm going to start just talking about certain things. And of course, you're welcome, as usual, to put things in the comments and those sort of things. Before I start, let me say hello and good evening to my fellow JCI members. JC's International, JC stands for Junior Chamber. Yesterday was their Legacy Day, where they paid homage to a number of persons, Dominica JCs, to their past presidents, among whose ranks I'm proud to say that I was the president of the Dominica JCs a long time ago, I think 1994. And of course, it was good to see my older brother on there as well as a president. He was the 10th president of the Dominica JCs. Gillette Regis, my mom's first son. And the story about it is I grew up partially in Gillette's house because when I passed common entrance in Castle Bruce, I went down to go to grammar school because I had to live in Roseau, and Gillette was already there, and so I lived with him. And so a number of the other persons who are on the list as president or past president of the Dominica JCs used to be in the house. Gillette and I lived in the house, and they would have meetings there, committee meetings, of course, and we would socialize. So a lot of those men, not officially mentors, but they did recognize me as a young boy in the house and would treat me in a certain way that helped to mold me into the person that I am. So, in no small measure, I believe that the person I am today is shaped by the JC's movement. For those of you that don't know, it's a movement that is supposed that is the intention of the movement is to create leaders. So JC stands for Junior Chamber, as in Junior Chamber of Commerce, and it's supposed to teach young men and women the art of business management, project management, and so on. And so everything that the organization does, it does it in the form of a project where you have to create proposals and submit it for approval and do reports and close out and all of those things that teach you about project management long before project management was this popular and sexy term. The JCs would train uh, the members to run the affairs of the organization as projects. And so I heartened to see that the movement is still very strong and vibrant in Dominica. As a matter of fact, we have a young lady who um, she was the first West president of the West Indies JCs, because you have local chapters and they're affiliated to the regional chapter. In our region, it's the West Indies JCs, and they're affiliated to, I think it's called the North American or the American JCs. And so it's an international organization and it's divided into different divisions around the world. And so we are affiliated with the American ones. And so I need to stop talking about JCs because I can go on talking about JCs forever and ever. And of course, people like Alvin Thomas was the president. I followed that. He was my predecessor in the office of president. He was there for 2 terms. And then I became president. And after me, my good friend Terry, unfortunately, Terry is no longer with us. Um, but all of us were on the team, and then Doreen eventually became president. Marina also passed on, and so real camaraderie, real debates, and so on. All right. Now, also happened this week on Sunday. Apparently, a tropical trough, sat over Dominica for some time and dumped a whole lot of rain on the country, particularly in the north and the northeast section. So from Marigot, Wesley area, back to pass through the Carib territory, the Kalinago territory, Castle Bruce, and so on that northeast. I didn't hear much about happening in La Plaine, so it seemed like it was restricted maybe from Castle Bruce, to Freya, go back north towards Marigot, northeast on the northeast shoulder of Dominica. And excuse me, and it created havoc. We saw some folks, especially in the Kalinago territory, and Atkinson, who lost their homes from slippage of land. And of course, interestingly, last week I had 2 young ecologists on the program that were talking about the the way in which the construction was happening in Desbois. And it was claimed that they were quarrying stones for the airport. Well, the airport project was inundated and flooded completely. I even saw this one person on Facebook standing on a slope and taking a head dive into the airport site like it was a huge swimming or river, lake or something. And also, Debonche became extremely flooded. And, some of you contacted me and said that it would be a good thing to bring those young people back because, like, we were just talking about it last week, Wednesday, and see what happened on the weekend. But as you can imagine, with the amount of flooding and landslides and so on, they had their hands full. And so I also reached out to the past head of the physical planning division to see if she was available to come, but she was already engaged. And so we'll bring her on because part of what's happening, and I hope to discuss with Alex when he gets here, is the lack of adherence to our building codes, our building practices. The most fundamental one is that if you're going to do any kind of construction, you have to submit your plans to physical planning division and have them um, give you permission. And it's not just permission for the sake of getting permission. They have experts on staff who will look at the civil engineering, who will look at the impact on the environment, will look at the structure, what you're going to build, and make sure it's not going to pose a hazard to the public or to your family and that sort of thing. And we see the skirting and circumventing of those basic requirements. And because of that, the oversight that we need to employ that would avoid uh, unnecessary, or it would mitigate a lot of the impact are missing and skipped and overlooked and omitted, maybe because of cost or for other reasons. And then when we have an incident, it is so much more catastrophic. So we have to talk about that, because the general topic I wanted to discuss with Alex, I'm looking to discuss with Alex tonight, is our institutions. And by institutions, I mean not just like an organization, but sometimes there are procedures, there are processes that are put in place to put rails, so to speak, guardrails, so that as we as we venture into development and operations of the country, we are held within a certain safe parameters. And if we want to venture outside of those parameters, then we have to show that we are aware that one, we are venturing out of it, and also what the impact of that would be. And if it is necessary, unavoidable, what steps are we taking to minimize the impact? And so, you know, some people say it's rain and we cannot stop the rain. And Dominica is prone to rain, and it's not the first time that we see it happening. It happens every year. And in my mind, that is exactly the point, is that Dominica is mountainous, and it always rains in Dominica, and sometimes it rains much heavier than other times. And we know that. So if we know something, why can't we take steps to minimize the impact when it does happen, right? It's like we know Christmas is coming, so we budget for gifts or presents or parties or whatever it is. We know Creole Music Festival is coming. We know we need an outfit, we need shoes, we need money, whatever we budget for that. Okay, so we know that heavy rains, storms, and hurricanes are coming. How comes we are not getting prepared to minimize it? Not just pack an emergency and just bow our heads and take a beating and make sure we have dry food and batteries and whatever. What are we doing to make sure that if there's a heavy rain, it doesn't impact us the way it does? Last year I was in Grenada for about a week. And one of the things I noticed, not my first time going to Grenada, but I went into areas that I hadn't gone to before. And I came away saying that in Grenada they were building what we call in Dominica falaise. Very, very steep drops. They were building there, and it was amazing the way they used the steepness and the terrain to provide support for the structures that they were building. And I was driving some places and actually stopped, because I'm into construction. I'm like, this must have been such a challenge to construct. And they basically building on almost vertical slopes, but they're taking their time and they're doing retaining walls, they're doing shelving, and by the time you get to the road level, they have a huge structure on there. But if you walk down the side and you go and you see how much they've done, it's almost like they've taken care of the fact that when it rains and there's risk of slippage and all of that. And I'm saying, I know Dominica is mountainous, but in places like that in Dominica we don't build. But on the flip side, when we do build on a slope or when we do farming on a slope, we need to understand those risks. And that is the reason why everybody is not an expert. So that is the reason why there is a there's a planning, a physical planning division, that anybody can have what is considered to be a great idea, right? And if they have the money or the resources, they can build it. But they may not be engineers. They would submit those plans to physical planning, and physical planning would say, the slope is those and this, and there's this amount of rain, and it's the type of soil and whatever. You cannot build there, or if you're going to build here, those are the measures that you need to take to to minimize the risk that one night you at home with your family and it rains and you find your house falling off the edge of the cliff. I looked at some of the videos and I saw some farms. They are on a slope, but all the soil cover has been removed except for the crops that are growing there. And I'm saying in 2026, we should have the technology to understand and adjust our farming practices to the location. And we did that before. We used to plant a lot of vetiver, we used to plant bamboo, we used to plant different types of crop with fibrous roots that would tend to hold the soil together and make it more stable. But what happened to that? What happened to that? In the 70s, we used to have so much vetiver all over the country that there were whole industry of arts and crafts and mats making and different types of things that were done. When you trim your vetiver so that it doesn't grow too big, we would there would be enough to dry and to plat and to make different arts from it. Good evening, Didi Easter. Welcome. It's one of the regulars on this weekend interview for years now. And, people like Didi and Mona and Sophs and their folks, Owen, they come in every Wednesday. But why, instead of going forward and using technology to advance where we came from, we seem to be losing those native knowledge? Because where we are, we have the experience in native knowledge. We should be able to mix that with technology and have better outcomes. So just like I saw in Grenada, and you see it in some places in Guadeloupe and different places, we can meet the challenge of sloping land with proper engineering, first of all, and execution of the actual construction, so that when you get that type of rain, the water will run, but it eventually gets into the ravine or the river that's at the bottom of the slope, and the areas that we have developed are spared landslides and so on. Of course, maybe an earthquake might take it down, maybe depending on how it's designed, but not just rain. You know, by now we know that it rains in Dominica and it rains heavily. So our planning and our decision making should have that in mind. Not because we're doing construction when the sun is shining that we can forget that, oh, when it rains the river diverts and comes this area. How can we stop that? In Castries, where I'm from, I remember sometimes, not many times, maybe once every 5, 6 years, we get heavy rain, and the river, the Laya River, at the top of the Castle stretch, would would divert and come down the roadway and flood all of those farming lands in that area. And then eventually, some gabion baskets were put there to prevent that from happening. That did not happen for years. And what you would know, that a couple of years ago, that bridge was replaced. The bridge was so well built, it took them weeks to demo that small bridge. And what did they do when they replaced it? They ripped out the gabion baskets that were put in place. And since then, we're having floods repeating and affecting the agricultural lands. Why, why is it that the government sets the rules that you have to submit your plans for review and approval, and the government will choose not to follow the rule, and it's not optional. It's written into law. There's a physical planning act that governs that. And so I did a post on Facebook today, and I said the recipe of a hero is to leave the people exposed, wait for nature to slap them because we know that's going to happen, and then show up and sympathize and take a photo up, and then we're a hero because we responded so quick and we care and we this. But if compassionate leadership should be to recognize the risk and take steps to minimize the impact of those events when they happen. That is what compassionate leadership should be about. Avoid the suffering in the first place. Yes, it's good that if somebody suffers, that there is somebody stretching out a helping hand to them. But if that person had the option to avoid the suffering in the first place, what is the motivation for not doing that? To create a hero, a Batman or Superman or whatever. In Dominica, who are our heroes? Copelape, 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 the sly one. But that's what I'm saying, though. What I'm saying is that we need to pay attention to those things. How we build our bridges. I mean, we travel. Our rivers are maybe 60 feet across, if that. I mean, some of them, like Lai River is probably a couple, maybe uh, 100 feet, 150 feet. But when we build bridges, we always have to have pillars and supports in the pathway of the river. Now we see the technology is there. It's been there for 100 years to build suspended bridges that span half a mile, a quarter mile, a mile, and there are no supports in the middle of the stream. Or maybe there's one, but there's enough space on both sides that even ships go through. But we insist on building bridges that are low, that have stuff in the middle of the river that will obstruct. Because when the river is in flood stage, it brings down logs, it brings down rocks, it brings down debris. And so they hit that support in the middle of the river. The water hits it, it forms like a dam, it comes over the bridge, it destroys the bridge, it goes off on the edge, it destroys the abutment, and we come and we build the bridge the same way again. The list said everything that was in place to mitigate the impact of such disaster have been systematically chipped away in such a reckless and irresponsible manner that it has left the environment vulnerable to these threats. That is so true, and that is all over the island. Uh, and so, folks, that instead of recognizing and acknowledging that the warnings that were being given about debauch, instead of heeding it because it's still early, we haven't, I don't think we've done irreversible damage at debauch as yet. If we stop now and we try to remedy what we've already done, I think it's savable. But instead of acknowledging that and taking that action, folks are saying, but you guys making a fuss about debauch. It's not only debauch that has landslide and flooding and topsoil and so on. And I'm saying, what? Are we saying that if your child come home and your child fail in maths, and you say, how comes you fail in math? Your child can tell you, but daddy, it's not just math alone. I fail English and science and chemistry and so on. Why are you picking on maths? I mean, the craziness that people say in their rush to avoid acknowledging that the government of Dominica can do better. There's no admission that the government can do better. Instead of admitting the government do better, they somersault and twist and turn and spin to find something that they can utter to avoid that. But everybody knows that the only way you improve is to acknowledge that something can be done better, and to ensure that it will be done better the next time. And so I was amazed at some of those responses. And the thing about it is that the reason why we have that happening, not just in Dearborn, is because it's not only in Dearborn that we've had construction happening without proper environmental impact assessment, without proper oversight. And so in the Casabas area, again, that new road that was built in the areas where they changed the alignment of the road and they went into the banks. They did not shelve those properly. They did not put retaining walls where they should be put, and so you have flooding and landslides there as well. You have in the Kalinago territory the way that the road was built before, when Sintra and Nelote and those companies had a contract to build it. I remember those things from, I'm going to date myself up, but the early 70s. The roads were sloped in such a way that the water would run off to the to it would be controlled to run off to one side, and then it would be collected into and then channeled into culverts to go underneath the road. But now we saw those videos where the runoff from the road is entering people's yards. It's and flooding people's homes. And you were saying, if you come to upgrade and repair a road, why are you making it worse? And then people who have losses now, the prime minister is hugging them and expressing empathy and promising to help, but the help that they needed was the proper supervision, that when the road was rebuilt it would be banked correctly, and it would make provisions to handle the water that's running off from it and so on. I mean, it's not just, well, we resurface the road and the road is smooth. What happens when you just lay something down, rain falls and the water runs off on the wrong side, so to speak, of the road? It enters the property. You don't put abutments or curbs that's going to keep it flowing. So what what do you do next time? You continue to just be you run up there, and then the audacity to use the photos as photo ops to demonstrate that you are a caring leader and an empathetic leader, and that sort of thing. It's mind blowing. So, folks, what I would say to that is that we have to consider the fact that this current administration has been running the country since 2000, 26 years now. And so everything that happens in the country has to come to the feet of the people who are running the country. There's no thing, well, this is inherited that and he made it in a mess and they had to fix this. And no, after 26 years, in a small economy and small operations like Dominica, everything is the responsibility and the fault of that one person. Because I have to say it's him, because he has changed people on his team. The only constant that's still there is him, and we continue to have those sorry outcomes. I'm going to take a break because we are at 8:30 at the half hour. When we come back, I'm going to talk about the process that's going on for people to re-register to vote. I want to encourage folks to register to vote, because it is time to give a different team a chance to run the country. Let us see if we will have a different outcome. And the only way we can do that is if your name appears on the list of electors. And so no matter how difficult it is or challenging it is, we want to encourage you to go and put your name back on the voters list. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about that. And of course, keep your comments coming, and let's see what we can do about that quandary that we find ourselves in, Dominica. So Quick break, and we'll be right back.
Presented by. Presented by.
People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
Looking to promote your business, engage current customers, and reach new people? Well, look no further. From the basic presentation to a fully fledged advertisement, use your video ads to attract customers. At Man's Audiovisual Productions, we do just that. We produce videos for business and event promotions, product demo videos, animated explainer videos, fundraiser ads, and much, much more. Engage your clients and sell online. We customize the video to match your brand design. Guaranteed to play flawless on all devices, including smart TVs. Contact us at telephone number 203-690-4342 or 767-245-6238. Visit our website, mansaudiovisual.com, or email us at derekvideo@gmail.com.
Running a radio station shouldn't be chaos. It should be simple, smart, and professional. With Joan Premium, your entire week schedule is beautifully organized and easy to manage. Real-time accuracy keeps your listeners in sync with every show. Your visitors and audience sees the right schedule every time, wherever they are. They can even choose different time zones. From analytics to social media and native app integration, Joan Premium is the professional tool your station deserves. You're never alone. We provide priority support for active license users. We're building a community. Connect with broadcasters worldwide through our Joan Community Hubs. Choose your plan, annual flexibility, or lifetime freedom. Get Joan Premium today. www.gndenterprisesinc.com or call 877-698-9894 for more information.
netchoiceradio.com. Have you guys visited to see what that is about? You should go check it out. netchoiceradio.com. Thank you to all the sponsors for your support, and thank you for staying through the break, guys. Tonight my guest hasn't shown up, so I'm thinking that he's not showing up. Most likely, some emergency of some kind must have delayed him or prevented him from coming. But nonetheless, I have you and you have me, and so we can make it happen. You know, we were talking about, well, it had morphed into governance, and the theme for tonight is our institutions. Why are our institutions so weak that they no longer have the authority and the teeth and the strength to function in the role that they're supposed to function? So we spoke about the physical planning division, the physical planning act. Um, what we saw was that the physical planning division went to the contractors at Daywash and issued like a stop work order. And if it's a local citizen and they do that and they continue to work, people get brought before the court. People, whatever they built get demolished and so on as regular citizens. But so the contractors, even with that stop work order in place, continued to bring equipment to the site and to continue to work. And a few citizens and folks in Dominica stood up to them and was trying to enforce. And instead of the government in the form of the representative in the police department enforcing the laws of Dominica, they were manhandling and roughing up the people who were trying to get clarity as to why is there a stop work order in place, but we still have work continuing. And the part that really grinds your gears is that these folks are not Dominican, and so it feels as though these are foreigners who come to our home and decide to disrespect our laws, and they are being supported, actively being supported by the government and the people of the country who are standing up and saying, hey, this is our law. You cannot come here and just contravene our laws. The police is pushing them out of the way so that the equipment can go in. So, folks, what I would say is that we see the things that's happening in Dominica. We see that there is a government in place that doesn't listen to the people. The people speak, and if they speak loud enough, they they do a slight pause and they change direction and they try to do some cuckoo macaque or something. And but by and large, once they decided that this is what they're going to do, they're going to do it and do it in the most reckless manner. And so I put it to you: do you think that Dominica? Let me rephrase that. What do you think Dominica would look like with that same administration continuing to be in control of our resources for another 5 years? We in Dominica, our biggest distinguishing factor is our environment. Okay, our 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 environment and our ecosystem, our naturalness, our rivers, our clean air, our clear water, and all of those things. But we have a government that is attacking that. You heard last week my guest says that as you start to encroach on the Northern Forest Reserve, you're starting to affect the water catchment area that goes all the way to Picard in the north and comes back into Marigot and Londonderry and Pigwa River. And the rocks there have been proven to have arsenic. All right. It's been proven to have hydrogen, it releases hydrogen sulfide, which when it hits the atmosphere, it converts to sulfuric acid. We used to say about acid rain. We never imagined we would get acid rain in Dominica, but we are releasing the hydrogen sulfide that has been trapped in those rocks, releasing them. And so we have acid rain that's going to affect the rocks and result in the release of all of these heavy metals, mercury, arsenic, and so on. Do you really think that we as a people, Dominica as we know it right now, will look anything close to what it's looking like with another 5, 10 years of this administration who doesn't seem to have an interest in doing things the proper way? And if you agree with me that the outcome doesn't seem to be a favorable or good outcome, then there's only one conclusion, which is to change, to replace the people who are handling our resources, the people who are running the country. And since we have a mechanism in place to do that, is at the polling station to vote. And so we need to make sure that we vote, because if the numbers are small, the chances of changing the government is small. So there is a re-registration that is going on. Uh, so I encourage you to get the information that you need to make sure that you get your name back on the voters list. Because my understanding of what's happening is that the old voters list is going to be thrown out, and the new voters list is going to be what elections are going to be held on. So if your name is not on that new list, you will not be able to vote. Never mind that you are 70 years old and you voted 6 times or 5 elections or whatever it is. And you cannot come now and say, but everybody know I'm from Castlebrooks and I always vote in and this is my polling district. And you're looking at the polling officer and say, Madam so and so, you know me. I'm right here. Let me vote. No, if your name is not on that list, you will not be able to vote. And so the encouragement is for everybody to go and put their name on that new list, because we have not been doing that. I mean, I have seen education campaign for mosquitoes. I have seen education campaign for biting midgets. I have seen education campaign for all sorts of things. There is not a public education system that's constantly reminding people to go and register to vote. Put your name on the voters list. Even if you decide you don't want to vote, put your name there anyway, because who knows who's going to piss you off, and you're going to decide that you want to vote. But if your name is not on the list, then your help, you cannot vote. Who knows if you like what is there so much, and you hear me talking about change, and you want to tell me never happen. I love my prime minister. I'm going to keep him there. If your name is not on the list, you cannot vote. And so I would really, really, really encourage every single Dominican to go and register to vote, as long as you qualify. You are resident in the country, you're in a constituency, I think it's for 3 months or 6 months, something like that. You meet the criteria, go to vote. You need a birth certificate and so whatever. I'll find out what the criteria is next time to tell you. But I really, 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 really want to encourage every single person to go and register. Put your name on that new list. And after you put your name on that new list, not even after, when you go in to put your name on that list, bring 2 people with you and have them put their name on that list as well. It is so important that we do that, because there's so much effort that went into getting us the right to vote and for our vote to count, that for you to just give it up and let nobody, have a say. You have no say because your name is not on the list. Put your name on the list. This reminds me of the people say they file for people. When you file for your family, you say to get your American green card, there's always 1 or 2 people in the family that says, me, I don't need that. I never want to go to America. I'm happy here. I'm not going to America. I'm not moving. And they don't do it. And guess what? 5, 10 years down the road, they have children, and these children want to come up to go to university because the education in the country is not on par. And now they have to scramble to go and see if it's too late or not to get their green card, so that their children can get the green card through them, and so that they can come up to go to school in America or to leave, or something happens, they lose their business, or some of the breadwinner in the family dies, you need to move. Whatever, you get sick, you want to come up for medical care, but because you made a decision not to take advantage of the fact that you could get a, a visa or green card. You're now stuck because you don't have that ability. That's the same type of scenario that will happen if you don't go and register yourself to be on the voters list. That's all you're doing. You're not making any decisions right now. You're putting yourself on the voters list so that when the time comes, if you decide you want to exercise your right to vote, you have that right. You know? So what I understand is that in the old law, if you on the day of the polling you could go register and they would make you do a provisional ballot. That has been taken out. That has been taken out of the law. You have to have registered for a certain period. I think once the house is dissolved or something like that, you cannot register anymore. So folks, it is disastrous. The performance of the people who are in charge of the voters re-registration process is dismal. They've been the process is supposed to take a year, I believe. We're 6 months into it, or 6 months into the process, and they're expecting to have maybe 40, 50,000 people registered to vote. You know where they are right now? 4,000. They're halfway through the period, and only 4,000 people have been registered. The 14,000 people have applied, only 4,000 have been confirmed. Although I don't like the idea of you go to apply, why does somebody else have to confirm? If you show up and they have a checklist, a birth paper, a photo ID, somebody to vouch for you, and you meet the 3 or 4 criteria that they have, why isn't your re-registration on the list automatic? Why does it have to go through a process for somebody to approve? Because the person who is there taking your documents and checking can see that everything is valid. Why the other process where 14,000 people have in fact applied, but only 4,000 have been confirmed? And the is they saying it will appear those scoundrels are on a mission to transform Dominica from a fertile and lush habitat to barren lands after extracting its resources and destroying our waterways. Uh, you know, that is not stretching it because it doesn't seem to be incompetence, it doesn't seem to be lack of knowledge, it seems to be deliberate. You know, I say that Dominica is being gentrified. Um, and for those of you not familiar, the word gentrified is when you have a group of people that's living in an area and there are certain other people who are more powerful and have more resources decide that in that area where the people live in, that it's too good for them. It's maybe closer to the highways, it's closer to the airport, it probably has um, better houses, maybe it's closer to water supply, whatever it is that make them determine that that area is good for the people who are currently occupying it. They come in, they use the police to harass the people who live there. Every time you turn around, a police is saying something to you or the other. They destroy the schools, they destroy the healthcare system, they make it difficult for people to live there so that anybody who has the ability and the resources to go will go from there. And what is left are the people who cannot leave and the people who are too weak to resist. And so they move in and they offer you money for your property that is, seems so good that you cannot refuse it. They push you out. And like I said, they harass you with police. Police, you become a police neighborhood or police state. When you look at what's happening in Dominica, all of what I just said is what is happening in Dominica. They make Dominica so unbearable that everybody who has the ability to leave will leave, and then they oppress and make it oppressive for the rest that remains. And they make it attractive. People come in and offer high prices for your land and your house and so on. Doesn't that sound like Dominica? Doesn't it sound like Dominica is being gentrified? Where somebody decides that Dominica is too good for Dominicans, and we need to replace them with another set of people that will swoop in and occupy the space. I there's no other time in my life that I hope that I am wrong as I feel about this, but I am convinced. Um, and I hadn't been to Dominica in a while, and in the last couple of years I went a few times, and it is just so. After living in the U.S. and watching neighborhoods get gentrified, that's all I saw in Dominica, that Dominica is being gentrified. Our schools are being neglected. Our healthcare system is atrocious. All the support systems is being deteriorated. And so that when you have your children, you think of what's available for you to raise your children so that they can get the education and the upbringing that they need to thrive as you, and you're like, wow, this is not it. Even if I can stay here for myself and Guaye, I cannot not give my children the opportunity, a better opportunity. And so you take yourself and your children and you move. And that is the objective. And you make people feel so pressed upon that when the opportunity comes to move, they don't hesitate to move. And then these people swoop in and they offer you 100,000 US dollars for an acre of land, and they offer you this and make it so sweet, and you have to sell. And before you know it, the demographics of the country has transformed. Keep your eyes open on that, Dominicans. If you've never heard the term gentrified, look it up and look at what's happening in Dominica and tell me that you don't think that Dominica is being gentrified. All of the major projects that's going on in Dominica, you hardly see Dominicans being awarded. And then they say, oh, Dominicans doesn't have a good work ethic. Dominicans don't know how to come to work on time. Dominicans are not skilled. Dominicans don't want to work hard. But whose fault is that when you've had the same government in power for 26 years? Whose fault is it if we don't have a competent workforce? Whose fault is it if our education system is not producing people who can support the goals, economic goals, and the social goals of Dominica? Whose fault is it if the only thing that we see that is being propped up and supported in Dominica is a party after a party after a party? It's Christmas, it's Carnival, it's jazz, and every week or every month that doesn't have a festival, we want to put a festival in there because we want to keep the people distracted, and we know that they don't earn enough to pay for those festivals. We subsidize them by giving them free tickets to go. And it looks like we're doing good to them because our interest is to reduce and reduce and reduce and reduce the population of the people who currently own that neighborhood, that country, that state. So that as they become under pressure, somebody shows up smiling with a checkbook. You say thank you, and you see it as your means of getting out. Dominica is being gentrified. So there was a popular folk song that says, "Pas quitter your point, Dominic Hodnou. Do not allow them to take Dominica from us." I think there is a modification that has to be there to say, "Do not allow them to give Dominica away from under us." Definitely that. It says gentrification. Mr. Ego, you're so on point. A few years ago, there were a group of billionaires that proposed the exact plan to buy Dominica and misplace the natives. I'm telling you, when I went to Dominica, I saw gentrification in process. And those folks who they love this person, they love this person, love this person. This person does not love you because they are not doing anything to make you have a viable option to stay in your country. There's no place in the world that has the same ambience like Dominica. When you land in Dominica and you come off, there's that energy that you feel, that is different from anywhere in the world. And at the same time, it's relaxed, right? And it's easy. Even if it's mountainous, it's easy. folks with resources and money comes and experience that, and they will want it for themselves. And if we don't have the correct people in place to keep them away, they will give Dominica away from under us. And they are doing that. And we have folks, we have so many of our people who use the resources of the country to go out and get an education, and they come back and they are blindly supporting that, what is happening. There is no compassion for the people of Dominica by the people who are running the country. I know those are strong statements, those are the truth. And if you support your party, you support your party. If you choose to make one person be the most important thing in the world to you, that's fine. Because I think there are enough of us who see it, who don't like it, and who want a change that we don't, in my mind, we do not need to convert a single Labourite. All the Liberites can stay supporting the Labour Party and keep them in power if there's enough people who is seeing what's going on, who do not like what is going on. If we can just organize ourselves, if we can just identify a few leaders who will represent us and who we can rally behind, we can change that in no time. And so the call is to identify those people who can step up, raise their heads, not be afraid, not be intimidated, and be clear in the message. There has to be a unifying message that can inspire the vision of the people to support you. Because I think there's enough people who will vote for a change. I mean, the last election, uncontested election, the party only got 13,000 votes. So that tells me there's a lot of folks who are not happy. And if they can be presented with a well enunciated message and a proper movement, I think I know we can make a change. And even if it doesn't mean that that movement wins 11 seats at the next election, if we win 4 seats or 5 seats where we can go into parliament and really raise our voice, I think that would make a difference to where the next time around we would that incumbent party would lose 11 seats. That's all we need is for them to lose 11 seats. And so I'm a little disappointed that Alex didn't show because I wanted to go down that road a little bit more because he's involved in Team Unity Dominica, which is the whole concept of what we need. We would not ask anybody to leave their party and join another party, but I think that those of us who have a vested interest in seeing a change can rally behind a unifying platform, a unifying message, and i- and have the different representatives, people who are vying to be representatives, come into under that tent, so to speak. And so it will be very clear who is part of the movement for change, who is part of the new vision for Dominica. And so that when we celebrate 50 years independence in 2 years' time, there is a strong movement that's going to bend the fortunes of our country back up. And so that Dominica again will become for the benefit of Dominicans. I don't think it's too late, but I think if we don't do it soon, it will be very, very difficult to reverse. So it's 9 o'clock. I am going to stop here, but I hope you have gotten the message that I'm trying to clarify, that there is a regime in charge of Dominica right now that does not care about the preservation of the country. They do not care about doing things properly. They do popular things like, oh, we, you guys don't want development. You guys don't want this. You guys don't want that, but we have to have development. Yeah, we can have development, but we can have development that is suited for Dominica. You cannot try to turn Dominica into a Dubai. You turn Dominica into a super version of Costa Rica. You look at what our assets are, and you work around them, and you enhance them, and you preserve them so that our great grandchildren can have those same assets to make a living from. You don't try to destroy all of what we have that makes us Dominican. And then what? We become what, Singapore or Dubai, or those places that have limited resources and all they can depend on is concrete. And look at what happens when in those countries when there's a war that prevents movement of goods. They don't have anything local. And so you hear the report of so many billionaires that are running away from Dubai, of all what they have, because they don't have anything in it. Well, they have oil, but still, they cannot drink oil, you know. But in Dominica, we have land, we have water, we have air. We can produce all the food we need. We have all the clean water we need. We have all of our culture and everything that we need to have a happy life. Dominica will not lose a single person if we have good health care, and a ship doesn't come for 2 months. We have enough to keep ourselves going. Why would we destroy that? So that a plane can land, so that, I don't know, some people can have a palace on a mountain, or whatever it is. We have to understand that these people who are in power in Dominica don't identify with our Dominicanness, right? And they don't identify with our Dominicanness. They cannot protect and preserve it, right? And so we need to change that. They've been there for 26 years, and 26 years is enough time to understand that somebody is telling you that they're not interested, and therefore you change them and try somebody else. And you can only do that if you are on the list of voters. So first thing we want to do is to make sure that you go and put your name on the voters list so that you have the option to vote. And the second thing we want to do is to come together and paint a vision that we have for Dominica, and to get people who ascribe to that vision to be part of that movement that's going to change the fortunes of the country. All of what people talk about in terms of where our money is and all of that, all of those things are not as important, because you cannot get to those things at all. What we want is to give hope and aspiration to our people. Okay. And when we give hope and aspiration to our people, they will rally, and we can change the fortunes of the country so that Dominica becomes the best place, like Lennox Linton used to say, the best place to live, the best place to work, and the best place to enjoy a top quality of life. All right. So I'm going to leave it there. I hope you agreed with me, and you can take the ideas and improve on them and send me comments, and I will incorporate them next time, because as unlike some people, I know that everything doesn't exist in one head, and we really would want everybody to come with their ideas and their perspective, and we mash it together and produce a really nice bouillon or nice broth that all of us can enjoy. All right, folks, so good night. Continue to enjoy your week. Today is Wednesday. It's down to the weekend, and make sure you have a great weekend and come back next Wednesday. I really appreciate you coming, uh, and spending some time with me. So, good night, everyone.